Long before history was written, a war shook the heavens and split the earth. This is the Mahabharata, not just a story, but a cosmic saga of gods, warriors, curses, and fate. A battle between Dharma and the Dharma, truth and betrayal, where every choice shapes eternity. Welcome to Dark Whispers, where forgotten legends are brought back to life. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel, and turn on the bell icon and follow the Whispers of Destiny. Time passes in Indraprastha. The city rises from ashes into light. But in the unseen realms the gods stir. Agni, the fire god, emaciated, weakened, and hungry, approaches Krishna and Arjuna in disguise. For years, Agni had consumed only ghee from yagnas, but his strength was diminishing. He wished to consume the Khandava forest, but each time he tried, Indra doused the flames with rain, for the forest was the home of Takshaka, the Naga, beloved of Indra. Agni takes the form of a sage and begs Krishna and Arjuna for protection as he devours the forest. Krishna, ever smiling, ever strategic, agrees. He offers Arjuna a divine chariot drawn by white celestial steeds. From Varuna, the god of the oceans, they receive weapons. To Krishna, the Kaumadiki mace and the Sharanga bow. To Arjuna, the Gandhiva, a bow of incredible might, quivers that never run empty, and a golden chariot. And so the stage is set. As twilight falls, the Pandava prince and his charioteer begin their celestial war. Agni blazes forth. The Khandava forest screams with life. Elephants trumpet, birds burst into the sky. Deer run in panic. The Nagas writhe through the roots. Indra, enraged at the destruction of his beloved forest, hurls bolts of lightning. Thunders roar, rain lashes, but Arjuna's arrows weave a dome above the flames, a shield of divine steel. Every job is turned aside. Even gods pause. For 7 days and 7 nights, Agni devours the forest. From the heart of the inferno rises a single survivor, Maya, the Asura architect. Terrified, he falls at Krishna's feet. Krishna spares him. In gratitude, Maya promises to build a palace that would defy the gods themselves. Months pass. From stone, crystal, and illusion, Maya begins his masterpiece. Columns that shimmer with moonlight, walls that reflect nothing and everything. Pools that look like floors, floors that look like water. Doors that vanish, hallways that turn. The Sabha breathes like a dream, divine, impossible. The Pandavas step into it and feel small. Even Bhima, even Arjuna are awestruck. Yudhishthira, ever humble, places no throne at the center, but Krishna gently raises his hand and a throne of light emerges. The hall is ready for a king. The Brahmanas chant the Rigveda. Priests from across the Aryavarta arrive. From the banks of the Saraswati, Ganga, Yamuna, from Panchala and Mithila, they gather. On an auspicious dawn, Yudhishthira is crowned Rajarshi, king and sage. Draupadi, radiant in red and gold, pours ghee into the sacred fire. Bhima holds a conch. Arjuna stands behind the throne. Nakula and Sahadeva offer garlands to the sages. Krishna watches it all, silent. A moment of peace, a moment of glory, but it cannot last. The Pandavas continue to share Draupadi as queen, one at a time, in cycles of rotation as agreed long ago. But with Mayasabha complete, each brother now has a separate wing of the palace. To protect the unity and sanctity of their bond, a rule is spoken aloud for the first time. If any one of us is with Draupadi in private and another enters by mistake, the one who enters must go into exile for 12 years and live as a brahmachari. None speak further of it, but the seeds have been sown. One night a Brahmin arrives in grief. His sacred cow, his only livelihood, had been stolen by bandits. Arjuna, sitting apart from Draupadi, hears his cries and rises, only to realize that his weapons are in the chamber of Draupadi and Yudhishthira. Bound by Dharma to help the helpless, Arjuna rushes in and retrieves them. He returns the cow, but Dharma has its cost. He returns to his brothers and bows, I have broken our vow. I must go into exile. Yudhishthira protests, saying that it was for Dharma. No one speaks, not even Draupadi. Her eyes fill with waters, but Arjuna does not look back as he exits from the gates of Indraprastha. The halls of Maya fell silent. The Sabha that echoed with celebration and coronation now stood still. Dharma had spoken, and Arjuna, the Kshatriya who once lit the skies with arrows, now walked away with bare feet and bowed head. Not as a princess, not as a warrior, but a wanderer. The chariot of fire and gold remained behind. No Khandava, no royal crest, only silence followed him. And the blessings of his elder brother, Yudhishthira. Krishna watched from topmost terrace of Indraprastha. His gaze followed Arjuna until the dust no longer rose beneath his feet. No words were exchanged, only the quiet, inevitable turning of fate. Arjuna's path led him away from palaces and into the hearts of forests where sages walked with stars in their eyes. Dandakaranya, a forest of memory and legend where Lord Rama had once walked. Tapovana, where the winds whispered hymns instead of names. Naimisharanya, where ancient rishis meditated across lifetimes. In each place, Arjuna shed another layer of his old self. He slept beneath banyan trees, he drank from the palms of rivers, he bathed in waters where Vishnu once walked in his Vamana form. He fasted, spoke only when needed, and wore garments of bark and grass. He studied with rishis who had no kingdom, no army, but commanded the winds with mantra alone. In one hermitage, an old rishi asked him, "Why do you still carry the bow in your heart, Arjuna, when your hands are empty?" And Arjuna replied, "Because a warrior's dharma is not to fight, it is to be ready when dharma reads him." The rishi nodded, then sharpened not the arrows, but your silence. And so he did. Each day he meditated beneath the rising sun, not for power, not for glory, but to feel small before the vast breath of creation. He offered puja to Shiva beneath Rudraksha trees. He sat by the banks of Saraswati, where the river ran silent, no longer visible, but always present. In temples carved by no hand, he offered flowers to the unseen. In sacred ponds, he saw his reflection not as a prince, but as a seeker. He visited the temple of Badri, where Narayana once meditated. There in the freezing winds, he stood with folded hands. Snow fell silently. The conch of silence rang. He heard no divine voice, but his heart quieted. He wandered further, to Rishyashringa's ashram, where sagehood was earned in silence, to Kurukshetra, where sages had seen visions of future wars, to Vishla, where Yajnavalkya once debated with King Janaka, the father of Mata Sita. In each land, people bowed not to Arjuna the warrior, but to Arjuna the pilgrim. Children followed him in wonder, women offered rice and fruits, and the old ones looked into his eyes and saw the fire tamed. Yet exile is not only about moment, it's about stillness. And in his solitude, Arjuna faced himself. The memories haunted him, Draupadi's voice as she held back tears, Yudhishthira's eyes full of silent pride, Bhima's fist on his shoulder, the laughter of Nakula and Sahadeva, Krishna's silence. He wept not once but often, in the hollow of ancient trees, in the middle of night, beneath a billion stars. And each time the tears left behind a man more whole than before. He began to chant the names of the divine. He sat in mauna, silence, for days at a time. He learned not just the shastras, but the mudras and mantras that controlled inner fire. He met sages who renounced lifetimes. He walked with those who walked with ghosts. In Mandakini he swam beside glowing fish. In Pushkar he made offerings to Brahma. In Pampa he saw the footprints of Rama and Sita. The longer he walked, the less Arjuna remained Arjuna. Now the winds whispered a new name in his ears. Subhadra. A face he had glimpsed once. A heart that would beat beside his. But before love there would be a challenge. Before union there would be Balarama. And waiting at the end of the road, fate itself, dressed in yellow silk with a flute in his hand. The waves of the western sea murmured beneath the twilight sky as Arjuna stood upon the shores of Dwarka. Disguised as a wandering brahmachari, clothed in simple bark robes and matted hair, he had come not as a prince but as a seeker of inner penance. His bow Khandava lay wrapped in coarse clothes, buried beneath the sand far from the palace. Krishna had welcomed him with warmth but also with watchful silence. For even Krishna, who knows all time, knew what must unfold. At the edge of a sacred pond within Dwarka, a young woman stood each morning, offering lotuses to the deity within. He was neither veiled nor guarded, for none in the city dared to look at her with impure eyes. She was Subhadra, Krishna's sister, radiant with grace, noble in speech, and devoted in spirit. One dawn, Arjuna watched her from a distance as she laid blossoms at the feet of a divine idol. She looked up, and their eyes met just once, and in that single glance, two destinies shifted. Arjuna made no attempt to woo her. No words were exchanged, but each day Subhadra saw the same ascetic pilgrim seated beneath a banyan, unmoving, silent, eyes closed in meditation. Yet something stirred in her heart, unfamiliar, uncertain. Krishna observed. He said nothing to his sister nor to Arjuna. But one evening, when the sea turned copper beneath the setting sun, Krishna sat beside Arjuna and smiled. "You are a Kshatriya, not a stone. You're a man with a fire in his heart, and the Dharma of your race is to burn brightly, not just in battle, but in love." Arjuna lowered his gaze. "She is your sister, Madhava. I am a guest. I seek no dishonor." Krishna laughed gently. "Then do what your Dharma demands. Take her not through deception, but through the courage of love." One auspicious morning, the people of Dwarka gathered for a procession to the temple of Rukmini Devi. Subhadra was to lead the woman's ceremonial ride in her golden chariot, garlanded and barefoot. As the conch blew, drums echoed, Subhadra stepped into the chariot alone as per custom. But just as the horses were loosed, the chariot fell unconscious. From the crowd a voice cried, "A brahmachari! Let the holy pilgrim take the reins." Before anyone could protest, Arjuna, still cloaked in bark and Brahman thread, leapt onto the chariot, grasped the reins, and drove off at lightning speed. A moment later, Subhadra turned to see not a stranger but the prince of her dreams, holding the reins with fire in his eyes. She did not scream. She did not resist. She smiled, and Dwarka echoed with alarm. Word reached Balarama first. His anger was thunderous. "Who dares steal my sister? Bring out the guards, seal the gates." But Krishna sat unmoved, sipping buttermilk. "Madhava, your silence is treason." Krishna said, "Treason or destiny?" "He came in disguise as a beggar. Is this not deceit?" "He came not for war, he came for her heart, and it is hers to give." Balarama fumed, but his fury was fire without wind. Krishna had already calmed the storm. At the banks of the Saraswati, beneath a grove of flowering trees, Arjuna and Subhadra were married in the Khandava way, not with rituals and priests, but with mutual consent and the silent witness of the gods. Subhadra, daughter of the sea, rode beside Arjuna, son of fire, as they returned to Indraprastha. The people cheered. Yudhishthira welcomed her with honor. Draupadi, however, stood still, her heart torn with jealousy and pride, though she spoke no bitterness. Arjuna bowed low before her, but the wheel of time was already turning. From this union would one day be born a son, a youth destined to change the face of the war. As the sun set over the horizon, Krishna stood alone at the shore, watching the waves. One more thread is tied, one more fire lit. The storm comes closer. The sea gave no answer, only the endless chant of waves that know all, but reveal nothing. Indraprastha bloomed with prosperity. The fields yielded golden harvests. Roads pulsed with trade. The mystical Mayasabha dazzled all who entered, and the people sang Yudhishthira's name with joy, Dharma Raja. Yet within the throne room silence often lingered. For Yudhishthira's heart, though content, was not yet at peace. Sage Narada arrived one morning unannounced as always, clothed in saffron, veena in hand, eyes filled with laughter and warning. The earth is wide, O king, but can Dharma truly rest while the world is ruled by men of greed and force? Yudhishthira humbly replies, "What would you have me do, O sage?" Narada says, "Do what kings must do. Proclaim the Rajasuya Yagna. Let the earth know who is its rightful emperor." Yudhishthira's heart trembled. The Rajasuya was not just a ritual. It was a challenge to every king, every realm, every ambition. But Krishna had arrived that very hour as if destiny arranged it. In the garden of Indraprastha, Krishna spoke to Yudhishthira under the shade of a peepal tree. "It is not for pride that you must perform this yajna. It is for order. If you do not bind this land in dharma, someone else will, in adharma." Yudhishthira bowed his head, "But this task is vast, Madhava. There are mighty kings who will oppose it. Shishupala of Chedi, Jarasandha of Magadha." "Then first let us remove the shadow before lighting the lamp," Krishna said. The court gathered. Krishna revealed the bitter truth. Over 86 kings were being held captive by Jarasandha, caged in dungeons beneath Girivarja, awaiting ritual slaughter to propitiate the gods and affirm his supremacy. This was not conquest, it was tyranny. The court felt silence. Bhima clenched his fist. "Then let me go and rip his body in two," he said. Krishna says, "You shall, but not alone." A plan was drawn. Krishna, Bhima and Arjuna would travel as Brahmins to the court of Jarasandha. No army, no war, only strategy and strength. The morning of the departure was still sharp. Kunti blessed them. Through her heart, feared for all three. Draupadi handed them a cloth woven in prayers. Subhadra watched silently, clutching a garland. Krishna smiled gently and says, "In war, one needs weapons. In destiny, one only needs truth." Their chariot cut through the dawn like a flame through mist. To Magadha they rode to confront the unconquered king. And far away in Hastinapura, the old lion Dhritarashtra heard whispers of the Rajasuya, and his son Duryodhana's fist grew white with envy. They seek to make Pandu's son emperor. If they succeed, where shall we stand, Karna? Karna replies, "Then let us not let them succeed. Let us prepare." The court astrologers saw unusual portents. Eclipses with cause, jackals howling at midday, the river Saraswati reversing her flow for a breath of a moment. Sage Vyasa visited Indraprastha, briefly placing his hand on Yudhishthira's head. "Do what must be done, O son of Dharma. But remember, the higher you rise, the closer you become to the storm." The sages said, Krishna, Arjuna and Bhima ride toward a city ruled by cruelty. Yudhishthira begins preparation for the greatest yajna of the age. And far away, the fire of jealousy begins to flicker in Duryodhana's chest, awaiting the moment to ignite. Thus did the kingdom of Dharma take its first step toward empire, and unknowingly toward a war that would end an age.